So this video was requested by somebody who is very special to me and knows how much I love them. Um, this video is going to be something that's completely out of my personal... I've never done a video like this before. And that has to do with dating. Dating and relationships. So my personal experiences, I've had everything um, from wonderful relationships that turned into great friendships in the end, even though we didn't make it work, to philosophical beliefs that didn't quite align, to people that were just downright crazy. I'd rather not go into that last one. Let's just say 15 years with somebody on and off with a crazy mother of theirs. Long story. Anyway, so I've basically been all over the block, both online and off. And from this, I wanted to talk about various things that I've learned over the last 10 to 15 years. So you want to know your limitations. Don't under any circumstances change for somebody. Okay? You can make compromises. Dating and relationships are about compromises, but under no circumstances should you compromise your fundamental beliefs. Your fundamental don't destroy you for somebody else. Okay? That's basically what I'm saying. When you first start talking to somebody, let them know what things you're passionate about, what your interests are, both outside and in. In other words, physical, like as an example, I'm not a sports fan, but let's just say hypothetically, I like baseball cards. Okay, and on the inside, I really get a touch of euphoria from going to baseball games. Okay, so something like that. Know your standards. Again, don't under any circumstances change for somebody. Don't. Yes, you want to make compromises, and you have to wonder, what compromises am I willing to make? Okay, is this person worth it? Know your standards. Know your beliefs. It all basically falls under the same umbrella. And be sure you know what you want. Make a list, and I just talked earlier about your passions. Those are the small things, although they can be big. But when it does come to the big things, you want to make sure that you can be with somebody who can not only let you be yourself, but will let you remain yourself as the years go by. You know, somebody who you can learn from, somebody who you get along well with, and somebody who can teach you things that maybe you yourself weren't aware of. So that's basically just the general gist of it. Now, the next portion is going to be for people who are sighted that may be dating a partner who is partially sighted or blind. So let's begin with one assumption that everybody who is fully sighted seems to make whenever they see the red and white cane. What that assumption is they can't see at all. Okay, this is incorrect. Never assume that that blind means totally blind, including darkness. I've got some friends who are this way. But that is the minority. There's also legally blind, and what that means is, if you've gone to a clinic to get your eyes tested, you probably heard the doctor say something like, your vision is 20/70, 20/80, 20/40. Well, what does that mean? That means the first number is what I can see at 20 feet. The second number, that somebody who's fully sighted can see at 40 feet. Okay? So again, somebody who can see something at 40 feet somebody with perfect vision can see at 20. Legally blind is 2200 or worse. And by worse, I mean the bigger number. The 200 gets bigger. It's inversely proportionate. So the bigger the number, so the bigger the number, the worse your vision is. Okay. Keep in mind this is the American Visual Acuity Scale. I've seen the Snellen scale that's used up in Canada and over in Europe, but I cannot run the conversion off the top of my head to give you an exact number as to what would be considered legally blind in your country. You'll have to check with your local authorities and local medical specialists on that one. But again, so we have legally blind and partially sighted. I myself am partially sighted. My peripheral vision is about 40 to 60. My right eye is completely dead. And I don't mean physically dead. It's the retina is detached. So the best way I can describe it is this. If you're a sighted partner and you're dating somebody who's fully blind, I want you to try something for me. We'll use me as an example. I want you to close your right eye and keep your left eye open. You will notice immediately that there is no depth perception whatsoever. That is my current state. And if you take off your glasses, in my case, everything looks hazy. I don't know exactly how else to describe it. But in my case, again, partially sighted. But all of these count under the umbrella of being visually impaired. Now, just because somebody is blind or partially sighted doesn't mean they're not independent. I've got a friend of mine who happens to be the head of my university's Disability Resource Center and is married to a gentleman who is blind, and they are raising a 3-year-old son together and doing really, really well. So you never want to assume that just because somebody's blind, they're helpless. Okay, I can assure you that for many, many people, that's far from the case. So, if you are curious as to whether or not they need help, don't assume. Ask. For instance, if you are out at a restaurant and your dinner arrives, you can ask your partner, "Would you like me to identify what's on your plate?" And in that case, think of the hands of a clock. We'll use this watch as an example. I know it's upside down, but let's say that let me get there we go. So let's say that your meat is at 6 o'clock, your potatoes are at 9 o'clock. Yeah, your meat's at 6 o'clock, your potatoes are at 9 o'clock, your vegetables are at 12 o'clock, that sort of thing. So that's how you want to steer somebody. But again, ask and never assume. Let's see. If you're fully sighted, your partner may ask for your arm. Now, what does that mean? I'll show you. So, if somebody asks for your arm, in my case, I'm left-handed, so the arm that I would use would be the right. But for most people being right-handed, their arm of choice would be the left. And I'll use that in this example. Your arm wants to be at a 90-degree angle, and they will basically grab onto your arm like this, and you guys will go walking along. And if you are coming to a doorway, you take your arm from your 90-degree position, and you put it around back like this. That tells somebody who's blind, let's take again me for an example. If I was with somebody who was a sighted guide, acting as a sighted guide, which is to say you're being their eyes, by putting your arm behind your back, you are telling me that there is a narrow passageway coming up and I need to get behind you in order to avoid getting basically making friends with the wall, which is definitely not something you want to do. Um, Furthermore, if you are acting as a sighted guide, you want to, if you're in a place where your partner may be unfamiliar, be sure you want to excuse me. Be sure to inform your partner of any changes in territory. Such things are like ramps, for instance, um, steps, changes from pavement to dirt, or pavement to grass, or grass to dirt. Any sudden, like if you're on dirt, for instance, and you're on a pretty even area, and all of a sudden there's a dip, you want to be sure to inform them of that dip, because if you have little to no usable vision, what's going to happen is it's going to feel like the ground has fallen out from under you. I'll give you a personal experience. Several years ago, I was up at my summer place, and we were up there a lot earlier than usual. And I went down to, we have several places as a family whole, and I went down to one of them, and I went into one of the bedrooms. And next thing I know, the floor disappeared. Well, what had happened was somebody had unlocked the basement, which was the entrance to which was in the floor of the bedroom. And I bruised up my leg pretty good, but if the ladder wasn't there, could have been a lot worse. I could have fallen and smacked my head on the concrete floor of the basement. So you want to be aware of the changes in terrain around you and inform your partner of these changes to avoid any kind of an injury. Now, assuming a hetero, an opposite gender relationship, basically, and you're the lady, I understand it's traditional for the guy to drive you around, but if your partner is partially sighted or blind, you will need to provide that. You will need to provide that service. Or if you're insistent on the partner taking you, if you feel the lady shouldn't have to drive, then you're going to need to be open to making some compromises. You're going to need to make. You're going to need to. You're going to need to be willing to take the public bus system, Uber, Lyft, services like that. And if you're taking paratransit, I'm going to give you an example. If you're taking paratransit, you want to notify your partner at least a couple of days in advance. You want to notify them of the address. You want to give them some general pickup times and drop-off times.
6 o'clock p.m.
You need to do this because the way these systems work, these paratransit systems, and I know that I've talked about this in the past, so I'm not going to go into too much detail. But simply put, they need to have everything set up in advance. Therefore, you need to have everything set up in advance because they give the drivers the manifest and they go. They can't make alterations. It's not like a taxi cab where you can go on the fly. So, if you guys need to use paratransit, keep that in mind. If you invite them over to your house, you want to orientate them to the house. You want to include popular spots such as the living room, kitchen, restroom, and so forth. Let's do another example. Let's say you invited your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your partner over to your house for the first time, and they are blind. Well, let's say the very first room in your house is the living room. Okay, and so you could describe to them the living room as such. Now this assumes, ask how well can you see. If they say not very, then you say, okay, let me orient you at 1 o'clock, and you want to think about the hands of a clock. Okay, so at 1 o'clock is a chair, at 3 o'clock is the couch, beyond that is the TV, at directly in front of you at 12 o'clock, at 12 o'clock down a ways is your backyard door, things like that, just to give them a general idea of where things are. Now, if things get serious and you two end up moving in together, and you live together for a while especially, never, Never, under any circumstances, move anything around on your partner unless you inform your spouse prior to doing so. In other words, excuse me. Let's say you've always had this particular chair here and your partner knows about it and they're comfortable enough with the house layout to where they can get around without their cane, which some people very well might want to do. It depends on the person. But let's just say hypothetically that does happen. But even with the cane, you want to be sure to let them know that something has changed. If you needed to move the chair to make room for company, let's say, do that, because if you do not, and especially if this person's walking around the house without their cane, they could trip and fall because you didn't take the time to let them know about the change. Also, one more thing before I forget. If you guys are at each other's houses, never, under any circumstances, unless it's an emergency, of course, but as a general rule, you never want to leave the room without informing the person first. I mean, if it's an emergency and you have to bolt out of there, that's fine. You could shout after and say, hey, something's wrong, I'm calling, yada yada, and do what you need to do. But in general context and everyday situations, you want to be absolutely sure that you let them know, hey, I'm leaving the room, so if they need anything, they'll know that you're gone and they can text you in the other room or whatever it is they do. You guys have agreed upon. So those are just some general things, but most importantly, be yourself. Don't under any circumstances try to change. I know I've said that throughout this video, but it's very important. Be yourself and the right person will come your way. So again, I want to thank the person who requested this video. You are loved very dearly. You know who you are. I'm going to protect your identity, so I won't say who you are. But thank you for the request. Thanks everybody for watching. Comments are welcome, and have a nice day.